gentlemen, please be seated. We are about to begin our next session titled Mother Tongue, Medium of Instruction and Learning with Chaudhry Faisal Mushtaq, Farzana Feroz, Zubaida Mustafa and Barbara Toy Welch. The moderator for this session is Bela Raza Jamil. Please switch off your mobile phones or put them on silence mode. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the discussion. We would appreciate if complete silence is observed while the session is in progress. Bela Raza Jamil is the trustee advisor for the Idara Taaleem-o Agahi, Managing Trustee, Sanjan Nagar Public Education Trust. Okay. A former technical advisor to the Federal Ministry of Education and an activist at heart. Presently, she is the Chief of Party with Deloitte for Sindh Capacity Development Project. Bela.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. A very good afternoon to everyone. हमारा सेशन आई थिंक बहुत लाइवली होगा, प्रोवोकेटिव होगा और मुझे मालूम है कि इस वक्त यहाँ पे इतने और कंपीटिंग सेशंस हैं, मेरा भी जी कहीं और है, बट वी हैव टू बी एबल टू डू जस्टिस to the session on mother tongue, medium of instruction and learning with such eminent people who are here. I wanted to also share with you the format for this session. कोशिश करेंगे to keep it really tight ताकि हम इसको follow भी कर सकें, और क्योंकि ये एक ऐसा इशू है कि जिसके ऊपर लोग सोचते भी बहुत हैं मगर करते कम हैं, तो फिर क्या करना चाहिए, तो इसके लिए हम चाहते हैं कि मैक्सिमम एंगेजमेंट आपकी हो. तो इसका सेशन का फ्लो कुछ ऐसे है दैट हमने इसको पहले थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन है अबाउट व्हाट द इशू इज. I will then request the panelists to have 2 minutes round each on sharing their position on the issue. Then we will go to a second round of questions which will talk about the practice of this issue from each of their perspectives, and I hope we'll get enough diverse perspective from this diverse panel. And the third round will be on the issue of policy and framework and plans to be able to implement, and also laws with respect to this, कि laws क्या कह रहे हैं, policies क्या कह रही हैं और reality क्या है. हम कोशिश करेंगे to have enough space for at least a 10-minute round of question and answers, if not more. Let's see how efficient we are. We have on our panel, first of all, Zubaida Mustafa. She is a leading figure in Pakistani journalism. She is a winner of the IWMF's Lifetime Achievement Award for Journalism 2012. She writes as a freelance journalist. What an eminent writer. What a pleasure actually to read her columns and on her website, her blogs on social sector in Pakistan, and so many burning issues with so much passion. मेरी गुरु हैं, so it's really a pleasure. और इस मौजू पे उनकी बहुत दस्तरस है. We have Dr. Farzana, who is a renowned educationist, another limelight in the area of education and practice, who's founder of City School, an amazing free spirit entrepreneur, believing in innovations and many things that she does, and she does with a lot of, conviction. Like many others in Pakistan, or a few other female entrepreneurs in Pakistan in the field of education, they have gone beyond Pakistan into other places such as UAE, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Egypt, Philippines, just to name a few, to see that Pakistan ki jo education enterprise is going beyond borders. And there's a lot there, and please do read her profile. Chaudhry Faisal Mushtaq Sahab is an Islamabad-based educationist, founder and CEO of Roots Millennium Schools, much awarded, Sitara Imtiaz with 50 schools, and also is a change maker, believes in innovation and also going beyond borders, and his pioneering work in Chinese language initiative is also exciting. And in this whole debate on language, आज सुबह से भी हम सुन रहे हैं कि प्लीज़ उर्दू, अंग्रेज़ी और बाकी ज़बानें तो सुने ही, मगर चाइनीज़ कैसे आ रही है उसके बारे में भी हमें ज़रूर ये उस पर हमें उस पर नज़र डालेंगे और हम लोग कुछ उनसे सुनेंगे. And my last speaker on the panel is Barbara Toy-Welsh. And Barbara June Toy-Welsh is the Chief of Party of the Pakistan Reading Project. And you see this lovely bus outside and activities going on for children. Her passion is, and she's also a practitioner, to look at issues of language and learning in Pakistan, and focusing on grade 1 and 2 for Urdu, Sindhi, Pashto languages. So there's a lot of experience over here, and I think we will all benefit immensely from here. How do we frame this issue? And I think it's very important to frame this issue. And to frame this issue of language, I think first of all, please remember this region, जिस यहाँ से हम आते हैं इस खत्ते में, हम multilingual हैं. और ये दिन में पता नहीं कितनी दफ़ा कहना चाहिए कि हम लोग multilingual हैं. और इस वजह से हैं क्योंकि तारीख़ी एतबार से we had to first of all satisfy our personal needs, as that is part of our organic selves. We grow, we have to speak, and the language we learn is the language which is at home. But then we have to satisfy the gods that be, because हमें तो आगे का भी ख्याल रखना है. तो वो जो spiritual समझौता होता है उसमें हमें कोई एक classical language भी करनी होती है. तो लिहाजा इसी खत्ते में whichever religion you come from, there has been an agreement to do some form of language which connects you to your religion. So this is the religious samjhota. चाहे अरबी थी, चाहे संस्कृत थी, वगैरह वगैरह. So that's the other. चाहे Latin भी थी इसी खत्ते में. The third samjhota that we do is actually with state, and that has to do with our practical life. And that has been also a part of this region's history, that we had to do the language of the state. चाहे वो फारसी थी किसी ज़माने में, अब उर्दू है, और वगैरह वगैरह. So that also is there, and those issues still remain. I mean, so we were multilingual, we were never monolingual. So then what changed? What changed in 1835 over here, और जिसकी legacies आज भी चली आ रही हैं, वो मैकॉले का famous minute है. यानी कि 1813 से 1835 तक एक डिबेट चली 1 लाख रुपए के ऊपर कि वो खर्च कैसे करना चाहिए. और लॉर्ड मैकॉले को ये काम सौंपा गया, और उन्होंने हर चीज़ की तारीख, मतलब इतनी उन्होंने उस पर तज्जिया किया और इतनी दलाइल पेश करी, कहीं इकोनॉमिक्स से, कहीं एजुकेशन से, कहीं लैंग्वेज से. मगर उनका ये कहना था कि यहाँ के लोग जो भी हैं इस खित्ते में रहते हैं, उनके ऊपर 1 लाख रुपए उनकी ज़बानों पे खर्च करना इससे ज़्यादा बेकार काम नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि उनकी एक शेल्फ किताबों की ले लें और हमारी ज़बान ले लें अंग्रेज़ी, उसका और इसका कोई मुआवजना नहीं है. So I'm sorry to have, because Barbara is there and I want to give that frame also to her, she's a panelist. So the whole issue of Macaulay was that if you want me to stay in the service in 1835, with that minute he posed a question, and that either you let me have my way of doing away with this notion of supporting Sanskrit, Farsi, etc. and local languages, or I resign from this duty. Because I have given you a whole presentation, and that Macaulay's minute is worth reading for all of us, because आज भी हम colonial legacies में वो फंसे हुए हैं. Because his view was, this is absolutely worthless, this is not going to really do much for us, and we will be wasting our time in this debate, because there were those in the education and the East India Company service who truly believed that Sanskrit and Arabic and Farsi and local languages should be promoted. And he said that this will be, if you are to teach this, it will be because it is fruitful of monstrous superstition. If you are teach, and he said this is false history, false astronomy, false medicine, because we find them in a company with a false religion. उन्होंने तो एक ही हिसाब से उसको ख़त्म कर दिया, मगर उनके पीछे पीछे चल गए, और उन्होंने एक बात कही कि let's invest in the people who are going to mediate between us and the rest of the people. अंग्रेजी सिखाएंगे और फिर ट्रिकल डाउन हो जाएगा टू द लोकल लेवल. वो जाने और वर्नाक्युलर जाने, वो उनका काम है. तो ये तो मैकॉले साहब का काम रहा, और उन्होंने इसको कर दिया. जो लेटेस्ट थियोरीज हैं लैंग्वेज में, और जो पेट स्कैन्स और MRI के बाद 90s में शुरू हुई, वो उन्होंने कहा कि ब्रेन डेवलपमेंट टेक्स प्लेस फ्यूरियसली, बट ब्रेन डेवलपमेंट एक्चुअली कैन नॉट टेक प्लेस, स्पेशली द फर्स्ट up till 0 to 8 years of age, or 0 to 3 years, 5 years of age. And the whole, that with what furiousness the brain develops has to do with the issue of language. So there's a symbiotic relationship, as Zubaida Mustafa says in a very nice book, and I'll just introduce that, between language and brain development. So, of course, where does the language come from? Has to be the mother tongue, has to be the language that the child is most familiar with. And therefore, the whole issue of language has become even a bigger one than the historical one since 1947. And we keep on shifting this issue here and there, thinking कि बस चल जाएगा. हमारे यहाँ तो जुगाड़ से हम चलाते हैं ना, तो जुगाड़ से काम अभी तक ज़बान का काम जुगाड़ से चल रहा है. What is the equivalent of jugaad in English? Barbara, I'll let you know in a bit. So this whole issue is going on. In 2009, we had a policy which said, under the issue of equity, that let's resolve this issue and let the provinces decide which language they want, especially at the primary level. Mother tongue honi chahiye, magar uska kuch faisla nahi ho chuka. But it doesn't stop at that. कुछ और वक्त गुजर गया, शहबाज शरीफ ने कहा कि इंग्लिश मीडियम हो जानी चाहिए, उन्होंने कर दिया. इधर कहा चाइनीज़ हो जानी चाहिए. खैबर पख्तूनख्वा ने कहा वहाँ पे भी इंग्लिश मीडियम हो जानी चाहिए 2014 में. सो देयर इज दैट कन्फ्यूजन एट वन लेवल. मीनवाइल इन खैबर पख्तूनख्वा ड्यूरिंग द ANP गवर्नमेंट्स टाइम 2011 we had the mother language, regional language bill, and that was passed as law. और उनमें उन्होंने कोई 7 ज़बानों को कहा कि मेहरबानी से इनके इर्द गिर्द कुछ रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस पे काम किया जाए. 2014 में खैबर बलूचिस्तान में एक अमेजिंग एक्ट एक और निकला, एंड दैट एक्ट you all have to understand the Balochistan introduction of mother languages as compulsory additional subject at primary level act. ये एक्ट इसी तरह से framed है, and this is 2014, and it gives space for mother tongue at the primary level and as an additional language. अब देखिए ना, एक इंसान गंभीर से गंभीर होता जा रहा है. I'll just close now, and I'll close by saying that whilst there's this whole issue of political expediency or confusion or whatever, जो हमारे सामने एक बड़ी reality आ रही है कि जब हम learning outcomes को measure करने जाते हैं तो our बच्चास are not learning. In grade 5, less than 50% children know grade 2 level basic reading in Urdu, Sindhi, Pashto, or in English, or can do basic math. Language is really the essence of this entire human enterprise, but we are still not being able to grasp this issue. This is the framing of the issue, and we know that seminal work has come out on this, and I would really urge Zubaida's The Tyranny of Language in Education. This is a revised edition here at the OUP stand, but also the work with Hywel Coleman, who did this work in Pakistan to explain this issue. But of course, Tariq Rahman and others' work is there. So this is the issue. It's a fundamental issue. It's now not even not a historical issue. There's a burning issue कि अगर बच्चों की कोई बढ़ाना है, cognitive development की तरफ आपने जाना है, feelings, expression, जिससे brain development, और दोनों linked है, language and brain development, तो इसके बारे में हम क्या करेंगे और कैसे इसका आगे बढ़ेंगे. मैं चाहूँगी कि सबसे पहले जुबैदा मुस्तफ़ा से हम बात शुरू करें कि उनकी टेक क्या है इस इशू के ऊपर. And sorry, I've done all the talking, and now no more. Please.
Thank you, Bela. सबसे पहले तो मैं I can't decide कि इंग्लिश में बोले कि उर्दू में.
बड़ा मुश्किल है actually, and we're also facilitating Barbara here, but आप उर्दू में बोले and we'll quickly.
So, you see, when I first started, I wrote about language for many years. But when I really started becoming an activist, I would say I found a very good supporter, and that is Bela. So because she has promoted this, the language issue, in all the Children's Literature Festival, in the Teachers' Literature Festival, and of course the KLF has also had 1 or 2 sessions every time my book has come out. Now since what is my basic issue, Bela has summed it up, is that first of all, you should ask, when does a child's learning process begin? You see, most of us, we think of a formal learning process when the child goes to school. That is maybe about 2, 2.5, or 4 or 5. And of course, the majority of the children for whom I claim to be an advocate, they are 6 or 7 years old. That is, you know, from the underprivileged classes. They don't send their children so early to school. So, but the learning process has already begun, and we do not realize that. The learning process, now they say that when the child is in his or her mother's womb, and all along when she may not even be speaking a language, but is understanding, is aware of her environment, and the learning process is going on. And it's a dual kind of a process. On the one hand, she is learning a language, whatever is being spoken at home, and the other is her cognitive development is taking place, and the two of them play on each other. Now, if you think of it, that after that, when the child comes to school, suddenly she is taught another language, and she's told that no, now education is in this language, and some schools even say that the child will not speak any other language in school, it will only speak English. And that, of course, some parents have protested at that, but in effect it means you stop the learning process and you start the child. She might have already wasted about 5-6 years of her life and then start learning again. And my contention is that overall, the whole nation, even those who have learned the other language well, it might be English or Urdu, but it's not their mother tongue, they will definitely not turn out intellectually and mentally. They definitely are not equal to those children who begin in their own language. And here I'll just point out one thing, because it was Maria Montessori who said it, although now others are saying it, but somehow they don't acknowledge her. And that is something I feel very strongly about. She said it, and then somebody sent me an excerpt from Tagore, and Tagore also said it, that when a child starts in her own language, the language she understands best, which she's learnt at home, then her mind opens up to other languages too, and it starts functioning that way. They can understand more. And that is what my whole belief is, and I don't know why it's so simple that you start your primary education in the mother tongue, and we should not be afraid of diversity. That is the whole problem with us. We want conformity. We should have, there'll be a number of mother tongues, let all of them be. And you start teaching them the other languages. You can start with Urdu because that's the national language, and English also. But it's as simple as that. If you really want your children to learn and to know how to think, that is the most important.
Thank you. Thank you, Zubaida. Barbara.
Okay, I would like to emphasize...
Is it working? Can you just stop it?
Yes?
Maybe bring it a bit closer.
I think it's okay.
Yes?
So I would like to emphasize your points because this is our research as well, but also to say that education is the basic building block of human capital. And a child's ability to learn in school and succeed in life is dependent on foundational skills. And foundational skill is reading. If a child learns to read in whatever language, then the child will read to learn. And if they don't do that, they will have much frustration, and their career at school will be very short and extremely frustrating. There is much research in the last 10 years to indicate the importance of learning in mother tongue. In many countries in the world, in Pakistan, there are over 75 languages, but we have to start somewhere. So in the Pakistan Reading Project, USAID has identified 3 languages, and it's not to say those languages are of the most importance, but it is because those languages have the most populated numbers, and that's the same criteria that has been followed in other countries. And it's very research-based. So we know that children need to learn to read. We know that they should learn to read starting in grade 1. We know that they learn best when they learn in their mother tongue. We know that if they learn in their mother tongue, they can transfer those skills very easily to any other language, multiple languages. We have the research that tells us this. So by developing the materials, by training the teachers, by working with the parents, in a very short period of time, there is success. For these 3 languages, I'll give you another example. In Ethiopia, they have over 75 languages. In Ethiopia, we started with 7 mother tongue languages, and again, because of population. Within that period, 250 people from the country, from those provinces, were trained on how to identify the best way to learn, the best sequence to learn sounds and syllables and letters, because every language has its unique characteristics. The teachers were trained and things were developed. So here's this group of people, this very big group of people who have been trained to do this. And they're all people from the districts, from the governments, that will continue this in the future. So there's sustainability. Now these 7 language groups are supporting the other 70 plus language groups. So it goes on and on. But we need to start somewhere. And it's always easier to start where the population is bigger, and other language groups are invited to participate, to learn about the results and how children are learning to read. Children are excited to read. Teachers are excited to come to school every day. Parents are participating, and parents are demanding more classroom libraries and more books for their kids. So the whole area of education is changing its focus very, very quickly.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
we've had 2 speakers who've spoken about the fundamental principle of mother tongue language teaching and then other languages. And now we'd like to hear from 2 proponents who are both running private school enterprises and where the medium of instruction is English. I'll start with Faisal first, and then his position on this issue of mother tongue teaching and the medium of instruction. And they're 2 separate issues.
Thank you, ma'am. And first of all, I think that it is fundamentally a very important subject and a topic. You see, to me, 1 language is a necessity, 2 language is an opportunity, learning 2 languages is an opportunity, and learning 3 languages to me is a mobility. Now, this is not that easy a debate as it has been put through the provincial, educational and constitutional and policy frameworks. I mean, you see, I understand the role of Sindhi in the Sindh province and the role of Punjabi in the Punjab province. Abhi, you see, the fundamental issue is that the research has proven that teaching in mother tongue, teaching and learning in mother tongue is more effective. It develops the cognitive and the linguistic development of the child. Children, those who they enroll longer in schools, and they tend to perform better when they are taught in mother tongue. Secondly, parents are able to communicate with the teachers and better understand their children's developmental, academic and social needs when taught in the mother tongue. And thirdly, it is also for the girls and rural children. For them, they do not have to repeat classes, their understanding level is high. And lastly, bilingual teaching has its own advantages as compared to monolingual teaching. But you see, this debate is not that simple. Since independence, we have been confused, and we call it Mother India. Culture we have adopted for Mother India, and the language we call it the Father India. So the language is English, and so-called the mother tongue that you want to adopt is so-called the social and cultural orientations. In the private sector, now that private schooling is no more an urban and neat phenomena, there is a private school for $50 in Tando Alayar, and then there's a private school for $1,000 in the city of Lahore. So the single common expectation and denominator in the private sector education, the parents want their children to learn English, the ability to read, write and comprehend English. Now when the entire nation is obsessed with the child's ability to read, write and comprehend English, your constitution is in English, your national language may be Pakistan, but your official language is English. Now it's more of a political statement and a siyasi slogan to say that teach my children the mother tongue. The ideal situation that the academics and the researchers, they say that in the early years, which is called L1, the level 1 of teaching, teach the child in the mother tongue, in the local language. Now you also have a differentiator. You want to teach them in Sindhi or you want to teach them in Urdu. So first of all, we need to put our act right. We need to have a national narrative. There is no national narrative. Pakistan is the 5th largest English-speaking, non-English speaking nation in the world. We are not an English-speaking country, but we are the 5th largest English-speaking country in the world. Now, in the global competitiveness and marketplace, the English-speaking, the medium of instruction of English helps our child. Now, if we want to be very patriotic and nationalistic, it's very fashionable to say that, okay, teaching should be done in mother tongue, but you need to look at the global marketplace and the employability and competitiveness and the relevance of that language as well. The recent court judgment के जी उर्दू में सब कुछ कर दो, उर्दू में ओवरनाइट कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता, पहले मुल्क के अंदर इकोसिस्टम बनाओ, एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी बनाओ, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनाओ, एक्सेस बनाओ. When you want to select your toilet seat, abhi bhi you differentiate that I want an English flush or an Indian flush. Why don't you call it Chinese flush? और पहले flush पे तो clarity लेके आओ.
Great.
This is not an easy topic to begin with, and then in my opinion, it should be a combination. At the early years, it should be mother tongue, the primary language at the provincial level, and then it should be a connection of the national language, which has to be English. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you. Dr. Farzana, your take on this, and then we'll have another rapid round on really the practices and what do you all recommend.
You see, Bella, you have to let me know whether I'm speaking as someone representing just the private sector,
No, you
or as
represent
a
yourself.
Pakistani representing the national need. You have a constitution in English which says that Urdu should be the medium of instruction. ठीक है?
Not really.
And as you know, my colleague just said, learning. Is it not working?
Yeah, Kareeb.
Am I? Can you hear me now? Do I repeat what I said before? Chale, I started off by Assalamu alaikum, please. First of all, everybody, and thank you for being here. I started off by saying that, you know, I am representing the private sector. My schools are obviously, we are, you know, our medium of instruction is English, ONA levels. But then, am I representing the private sector or sitting here as a Pakistani talking about the national interest as a whole? So, the thing is that we first have to define, we have a constitution which is in English and which says that the medium of instruction should be Urdu. I don't need to repeat and endorse what my colleagues have just said, Bela and Zubaida, that there is, it's non-debatable as to whether teaching is more effective and comprehension is more effective in your mother tongue or in another language. The comprehension is direct, that's common sense. And yes, learning does not start from the school, it starts from home. And when the child goes to the school and finds a different language being used there, it is in fact confusing. So the need is to define our goals as a nation. I mean, we have our goals as a private sector, but we cannot resolve the national issues. The goal of the nation should be literacy. We have to perhaps define the difference between literacy and education. I mean, education is a luxury. Literacy is a must, and that is what should be the universal qualification or the requirement. If you are literate, you can self-educate yourself. जैसे अकबर बादशाह का कहते हैं that he was the most educated, illiterate monarch. So the important thing is, and literacy is measurable, you can define it. Education की कोई limit नहीं है, you know, I mean you can be, it's an endless, you know, in terms of qualifications, but literacy can be defined. So the national objective should be कि हमारी सारी कौम literate हो, and that goal is not possible to achieve in another language. There's no two ways about that. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and there is enough research all over the world. We don't need to compare ourselves with the West, but अगर आप even in the region अपने आप को compare करें, apple to apple compare करें, तो countries like Malaysia, Egypt, Iran, they've all used their own medium of instruction to achieve a certain level of literacy. And then of course education is the next step. जहाँ तक global competition का तल्लुक है, yes, we need to compete, but how many Pakistanis can reach that level? You see, it's an expensive thing कि आप बाहर जाके काम करें या global economy, but the pressures of course in favor of English are social and economic. In the job market also, even in your own country, you have to be, you know, an English speaking person to be able to get a job in a good company. And एक stigma भी attached है to English as a status symbol. Colonial language है, traditionally, historically, जिन मुल्कों में जो language, you know, the previous sort of masters, as one can call them, left as a heritage, वो ही adopt की गई, and our legacy is of course English, and there is a certain status symbol attached to that as well. You know, we use the word Urdu medium a bit cynically, so एक social stigma भी है with the English and Urdu situation, and एक economic pressure भी है, globally भी है, and within the country भी है. English is the language of research, it is the language of you know, computer, and of course there is more material available. अगर आपने उर्दू में पढ़ाना है तो then the first thing that needs to be done is you have to develop the curriculum and the textbooks. जहाँ तक ये controversy का ताल्लुक है, I have been going through some research, I've got the papers here. Every government from 1947 has had a report prepared on this, and each has come up with a different, you know, this thing. We have, one version is that we have 8 native languages, the other is that we have 5, and we have 58 languages otherwise. But the important thing is that, I mean, you have to have comprehension. You can't first teach a language and then teach. So when you're teaching in English or any other language, it is indirect teaching. I mean, that's common sense. Or quote unquote Nelson Mandela, if you speak to somebody in a language he understands, you're speaking to his head. If you speak in his own language, you're speaking to his heart. So the thing is कि ये एक national goal है which the government has to resolve. And as we speak, we have this unfortunate and unique situation where we have 3 systems of education in the country, the ONA level schools, the madrasas, and the government schools. So there are 3 types of products being created and being brought into the society, and that will create a huge dichotomy. The dichotomy is already there. I think you know what I'm referring to. So these are very large issues for which, I mean, these kind of forums may not have an impact. They have to be handled at a much larger level. And there has to be effectiveness in the implementation.
Thank you, Dr. Farzana. I think we'll have to move a bit rapidly because time is getting on, and I know it's a complex and burning issue. पाकिस्तान में already हमारे पास एक सामने एक मसला खड़ा हुआ है, low learning है, multiple languages हैं, फैसले कोई होते नहीं, आज तक कभी कोई लैंग्वेज कमीशन बैठी नहीं कि क्या करना चाहिए क्या नहीं करना चाहिए. इवन जो ये बलूचिस्तान का एक्ट आया है ये मानता है और उसी एक्ट में लिखा है कि इसमें आप इन्वेस्ट करेंगे टीचर एजुकेशन में, लर्निंग मटेरियल्स में, असेसमेंट में, मगर अभी इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नहीं शुरू हुई और कुछ 6 ज़बानें दे दी हैं कि जिसके अंदर मदर टंग होनी चाहिए. मैं इस राउंड में आप लोगों से 2 सवाल इकट्ठे करना चाहती हूँ, एंड दैट इज़ कि जो आपकी अपनी प्रैक्टिस है, वट एवर योर प्रैक्टिस हैज़ बीन इन दिस एरिया of looking at the whole issue of mother tongue, medium of instruction, and the actual learning of the child, uski bina pe what kind of recommendations do you give? Because हमारे laws बनते हैं, policies बनती हैं, और इस वक्त एक और नई policy बन रही है. So the 2009 policy is just going to be, a draft policy will come out. So आपकी जो यहाँ से recommendations हैं, it may actually have some influence, and I think that's what we should hope for. That the time is that now today where we are, we've got some new research talks about brain development and language. there's new reality of social media, internet वगैरह, उसकी भी एक ज़बान, उसकी ज़रूरत है. तो ये जो हमारे यहाँ सब एक multiple layers हैं, इसको हमने negotiate कैसे करना है. जुबैदा जी, पहले आपसे हम पूछेंगे, so because you know आपकी तहकीक भी है, and you also practice with some children something, and you would like to maybe share what is the Zubaida way of resolving this issue.
एक्चुअली जो चीज़ मैं अभी जो हम लोगों ने बातें की, मुझे लगा कि बहुत सारी चीज़ें वाजे नहीं हैं, क्योंकि जो हम लोग कहते हैं पहले आप रास्ता हमवार करें, सब तैयार हो. देखिए, डेवलपमेंट में इस तरह नहीं होता, सब चीज़ें साथ चलती हैं. और या ये कि हम लोग की तालीम का मकसद क्या है, वो भी सिर्फ लिटरेसी देना तो तालीम का मकसद नहीं है. अब तो इतनी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक चीज़ें आ गई हैं कि आप पढ़ें ना तो आप फिर भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें आपको पता चल जाएंगी. तो सिर्फ ये कि आप अलिफ बे या ए बी को जोड़ के पढ़ सकें, वो लिटरेसी, उसी को लिटरेसी कहते हैं. और मेरे ख्याल में तालीम का मकसद उससे बहुत ज़्यादा है. और हम लोग, अफसोस ये है कि अब तक हम लोग ये वाजे नहीं कर सके, हम लोग फैसला ही नहीं कर सके हैं कि हम लोग की तालीम का मकसद क्या है. और जो सबसे बुनियादी मकसद था, जो पहले भी था और अब वो लगता है बिल्कुल वो हो गया है, यानी भूल गए हम लोग, कि एक इंसान को यानी एक इंसान बनाना है, किस तरह के वो सोच सके. और ये जो लिटरेसी वगैरह हैं, ये तो एक किस्म के टूल्स हैं जो कि उसके हाथ में आ गए. तो आप, क्योंकि जहाँ तक इल्म और तालीम है और जैसे कि इंफॉर्मेशन है, वो तो इतनी, यानी उसकी कोई हद नहीं है. तो आप 10 साल में भी नहीं पढ़ा सकते. तो आपको इक्विप करना है बच्चे को कि वो सब चीज़ों से ये यानी इल्म हासिल करता रहे. और अब तो यह है कि सारी उम्र इल्म हासिल करता रहे. तो बुनियादी चीज़ ये है. अब जहाँ तक लैंग्वेज का है, वो तो मैं मानती हूँ कि इतनी सारी ज़बानें हैं, लेकिन जब आप शुरू करेंगे उस लेवल पे इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. जहाँ तक अब जैसे किताबों का, मैंने अभी देखा सिटीजन फाउंडेशन ने इतनी उम्दा किताबें निकाली हैं, साइंस पे, सोशल स्टडीज़ पे, मैथमेटिक्स पे, सब उर्दू में हैं. और उसमें क्योंकि बहुत सारे टर्म्स ऐसे होते हैं जो अंग्रेज़ी में होते हैं, तो वो उसको ब्रैकेट में लिख देते हैं. और अंग्रेज़ी तो सिखाई, और हम लोग अंग्रेज़ी ज़रूर सिखाएं, लेकिन ज़रा सा सही तरीक़े से सिखाएं. अब तो इतने नए नए तरीक़े ज़बान सिखाने के निकल आए हैं जिसको हम लोग इस्तेमाल भी नहीं करते हैं. और बस मैं एक चीज़ ये कहूँगी कि जो मुझे लगता है कि जो एक बुनियादी, जो हम लोग का लगता है कोई कहता नहीं है, लेकिन एक ये मकसद ये है कि जो लोग हैं आम लोग, उनको बस खामोश कर दो. और उसका, क्योंकि बेला आपने कहा कि क्या प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, मैं हफ्ते में 2 दिन कुछ बच्चों को जाके यूं ही पढ़ाने, क्या मेरे ख्याल में मेरे लिए भी एक मशगला रहता है. और उन लोग को मैं तो चाहती थी कि सिर्फ उर्दू में करें, लेकिन स्कूल ने कहा नहीं, आप कुछ इंग्लिश भी सिखाएं. अब इंग्लिश में जैसे मैं कुछ उनसे बातें की, फिर उनसे कहती हूँ कि अच्छा तुम लोग बताओ बेटा अब इसको, तो बाकायदा प्लीज़ मिस मैं उर्दू में बता दूँ, मैं बहुत कुछ बताना चाहती हूँ. अब मैं कहती हूँ नहीं, अंग्रेज़ी में खामोश होकर बैठ जाते हैं. बस वो यही चाहते हैं, जो हम लोग की तालीम का मकसद है कि लोग खामोश रहें, जो हुकूमत है उसकी जो मर्जी है करे और लोग बोल ना सकें.
हम ज़बानों के हवाले से डिविसिव हैं. हम क्या कल्चर ऑफ साइलेंस प्रमोट करना चाहते हैं? ये कन्फ्यूजन जानबूझ के है? इज इट देयर बाय डिज़ाइन और बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट? आई लाइक टू हैव फैसल्स व्यू ऑन दैट फर्स्ट एंड देन वील कम टू बाबरा.
In my opinion, the confusion is not by design, it is by default, it is a natural progression. I totally agree with what Ma'am Zubaida said, and you know, she believes in what she has just said. I wish it was that simple, ये इतना आसान होता, but you see, ये मंजिल इतनी आसान नहीं है. और मेरी नज़र के अंदर you need to make those conscious decisions, like the one which the nation is making now to fight the war on terror. And one of those conscious decision is that you need to understand, do you want English as a medium of instruction, yes or no? अभी recently Supreme Court की जो judgment आई है, it has not been able to, they have not been able to get it implemented. Now, who says that we don't want our children to learn Sindhi or Balochi or Punjabi or Saraiki? they have always been learning. आप FSC, Metric, SSC और HSSC सिस्टम उठा के देख लें, सिंध के अंदर सिंधी ज़बान हमेशा उसका हिस्सा रही है. और even all these kids जो आगा खान और डाउ के और even grammar schools में, जिन grammar school में तो खैर Metric, FSC शायद नहीं किया, I don't know, but majority all these affluent students even from the province of Sindh, they all have studied. Anybody who has studied Metric and FSC, मेरी नज़र के अंदर इशू जो है वो आपने देखना है कि भाई इट्स अ कॉग्निटिव इशू वेयर द लर्निंग इज. सो आई थिंक दैट वी रियली नीड टू टेक इट एट अ नेशनल लेवल. आई एम अ स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोपोनेंट दैट इंग्लिश शुड रिमेन एज अ मीडियम ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन. इतनी कैपेसिटी नहीं है. आई डोंट वांट टू गिव माय कंट्री द एबिलिटी टू थिंक सो क्रिटिकली. One of my friends, Dr. Malia Lodi, says the problem with Pakistan is it is a very over-diagnosed country and everybody has his own opinion and thinking. We need to have some universal values of education, and the universal currency of education at the moment in the region is English. It's not only in Pakistan, even in India and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. You change the oval of comparative position, link it with the employability, collaborations, and also link it with the universities. You are eventually preparing your students, and the universities are focusing, now LUMS and IBAs are moving towards scholastic aptitude testing. So I think the USAID is funding all the money to create awareness in Pakistan to be taught in mother language, which is the national language or the regional language. The USAID should spend half the money in raising advocacy and awareness in Pakistan that Pakistanis, it is in your interest to learn in your mother language. So there's a total disconnect and dichotomy. We are doing in the private sector what we possibly can, and we are doing our best. We have our limitations, and I totally understand. And ma'am, you are a champion of change and reform. You yourself have done great work in your own capacity, and madam, you yourself in Aga Khan Foundation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal. Barbara, on that. There is a big issue. बहुत सारे लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हैं. किताबें चाहिए लाइब्रेरी के लिए सिंधी में, किताबें ही नहीं बच्चों की मिलती. अब इतना बड़ा एक इशू है. दिस इज़ नॉट, ये कोई ये नहीं है कि हम लोग इमेजिन कर रहे हैं चीज़ें, ये रियल इशूज़ हैं. एंड जस्ट नाउ फैसल रेफर टू वेयर USAID शुड स्पेंड मनी. बाबरा, व्हाट इज़ योर टेक ऑन दिस इशू, नोइंग फुल वेल कि बाबरा इज़ वर्कड इन इथियोपिया एंड वाज गिविंग अस एग्जांपल्स कि जहाँ पे बहुत अच्छी तरह से मदर टंग, होम लैंग्वेज और फिर सेकंड और थर्ड लैंग्वेजेस को बड़ी अच्छी तरह नेगोशिएट कर रहा है. इथियोपिया है, जिम्बाब्वे है, बहुत सारी, साउथ अफ्रीका, ये सब बर्निंग इश्यूज हैं ऐसे मुल्कों में जहाँ पे कलोनियल रिजीम्स रह चुकी हैं और कुछ फैसले नहीं हो पाते. बाबरा, व्हाट इज़ योर टेक?
Okay, I come from Canada, and in Canada, in the Northwest Territories, which is the northern part of Canada, we have 7 mother tongue languages. They're called indigenous languages, and they are all official languages, plus English, plus French. And by saying that, it's not an easy journey, but people have come together and said that my language is important. So having said that, just let me come back to say that we really need to ask ourselves about where do we want to be. And language is part of our culture. It's our identity. Language is our identity, whether we speak it or we don't speak it, but it's part of our history. I think the next question is to, I think we can continue for a long, long time having a debate. Some discussions are at very high levels in government. Some are at levels where we can actually work with schools and work with children. And what I've learned traveling and working in different countries is data speaks. We must have data. I Pakistan from 1998 to 2001, and I continue to hear some of the same debates and some of the same discussions, although there has been much movement and much change. But focusing on mother tongue, we have data. In Pakistan, you have data from IGRA, you have data from ACER. And that data is indicating that children, when they are assessed in English, or they are assessed in Sindhi, or they are assessed in Urdu, they are not reading at grade level. And we must ask why. Why are they not reading? It's not because we don't have the policy and because it's not nationalized. It's because they're not being taught well. They're not being taught with teachers who know how to teach reading so that it's easy for children, so that it's friendly, so that it's interactive, so that they're successful. And for me, this is what it's all about. Whatever language that that parents at the community want their children to teach, we need to listen to that. And by the time a child gets to the end of grade 1, they should be able to recognize all of their letters, they should be able to make their sounds, and they should be able to read 60 words a minute at the end of grade 1. By the end of grade 2, it should even be better. So by the time they get to grade 3, they should be able to transfer those reading skills into any other language, be it English or Urdu or Sindhi or one of the other 86 languages of the country.
Thank you, Barbara. So, issue is competencies, कि जो बच्चा सीख सके, learn कर सके, ताकि उस सलाहियत के बलबूते पर आगे बढ़ सके. That's where the investment should be of national policy and national financing of education and learning. Dr. Farzana?
Ji, I maintain what I said earlier on, that I think we first have to establish our national goals and then have the backup for that, which means the right curriculum, the books, and teacher training. In a national survey conducted very recently, as early as 2013, 70% of the teachers, said they found it difficult to teach maths and science in English. So we have to, I think, decide, as I said earlier on, whether we are speaking for the masses, for the nation as a whole, or are we representing or talking about a very small sector. It's like asking for cake when you don't have bread. So the national priorities have to be first established, and then the backup in terms of resources and books. It's only a very small percentage of the country that can compete globally and also can be the resource for the industry and for certain professions. But the rest of the country needs something else, and I feel that yes, literacy is the starting point. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We are talking about education, but education is the next level. We have to first define and achieve the levels of literacy. If you go out beyond this building, beyond your cities, we're talking about that. We're talking about Pakistan, and we are not representing Pakistan, if I may make that correction.
शुक्रिया डॉक्टर फरजाना. एक रेफरेंस जो था 2200 टीचर्स की टेस्टिंग हुई पंजाब में पब्लिक प्राइवेट स्कूल्स में टू फाइंड आउट कि ये इंग्लिश मीडियम ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन विल इट होल्ड इन पंजाब और नॉट, एंड दे रियलाइज दे कुडंट इवन पास द वेरी बेसिक टेस्ट इन इंग्लिश. तो देयर ये इशू है. बट आई थिंक द इशू इज अ बर्निंग वन. The issue is complex. The investment in it is very low, both from society and state. But we are now opening for questions, and let's see,
Investment is low and commitment is also low.
ठीक है. So questions, please. And can I have someone to help with the mic? पहले ये, and then I will go back and forth. जी, please. Mic काम कर रहा है कोई? Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam.
Short questions or
no,
comments,
there
can't be long.
There are volleys of questions, but I'll not go because you have consumed about 90% of your time.
No, it was 10 minutes and we are at 10
only
minutes
10%
now.
of the time. 90% is gone in the discussion, your chair discussion, and the 10% is there.
It was 10
There
minutes.
were the volleys of questions, but I'll not go to that. मैं सिंधी में बात करूँगा. I am basically Sindhi.
जी अच्छा, कोई translate कर देगा.
और नहीं, I'll speak in Urdu. ऐसी बात नहीं है. I'll speak in Urdu, but I was a vice chancellor of Medical University at Benazir Bhutto Medical University campus Larkana, and I was a member of public sector. Anyway, my questions एक दो हैं. अभी तो मैंने काफी डिलीट कर दिए. एक तो ये है कि हमारे लीडर्स जो जाते हैं जहाँ पर चाइनीज इधर आते हैं तो दे स्पीक चाइनीज लैंग्वेज एंड दी मॉडरेटर्स देयर. हमारे जो लीडर्स हैं, ऑफिशियल लीडर्स, जो आई नॉट नेम एनीवन, वो अगर अंग्रेजी बात करते हैं और उनको चाइनीज वालों को ट्रांसलेट करके फिर वो उसको बताते हैं, फिर वो ये ट्रेंड खत्म होना चाहिए. नंबर 1, दिस इज वेरी एसेंशियल. और जहाँ भी चाहे अरब अगर आता है तो हम अरब से बात करते हैं, और हमारे उधर जाते हैं तो फिर वो वही अरबी बात करते हैं. नेक्स्ट जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, किसी ने कहा कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज रिटन इन इंग्लिश. नो, वी हैव उर्दू ट्रांसलेशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एज वेल. So this is for this comment which should be noted, that the constitution not only Urdu or not only English but it is in the Urdu as well. तीसरा जो मेरा क्वेश्चन है वो है डिक्लाइनिंग स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ एजुकेशन. दिस इज ऑल बिकॉज ऑफ डिक्लाइनिंग स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ एजुकेशन, बिकॉज वी आर नॉट फ्रॉम एनी अदर, हम कोई ग्रामर स्कूल से नहीं पढ़े हुए हैं, हम भी लाड़काना से पढ़े हुए हैं, हमारे ब्रिगेडियर साहब बैठे हैं वो भी सखर से पढ़े हुए हैं. तो आफ्टर ऑल देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ डिस्कशन ऑन दैट, आई डोंट वांट टू गो इनटू. और मेरा जो आपने कहा ना कि वडेरों वो जो पाकिस्तान में इंग्लिश इस वजह से नहीं सिखाते हैं कि जो लोगों को अपना काम करना है इंग्लिश में कर जाएं. जैसे वडेरे होते हैं वो कहते हैं भाई हमारे कौम पढ़े नहीं तो बेहतर है, हमारे लिए बेहतर है. इट्स लाइक दैट कि इंग्लिश हम सीख रहे हैं मगर वो इंग्लिश जो है वो आगे उनको 90% के लोगों को तो पता ही नहीं क्या बोल रहे हैं. असेंबली में जाएं आप ना, BA एजुकेशन तो है मगर दिस इज ऑल फॉर्स. कैसे है आपको पता है कि वहां पर कैसे
आपका सवाल किसी से है?
ये दिस इज नहीं, बस ये दिस इज डिक्लाइनिंग मुल्क ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा, कोशिश करते रहेंगे और डिक्लाइनिंग.
पीछे प्लीज, पीछे और फिर आगे. एक सेकेंड जस्ट कैन वो पीछे पूछ सकते हैं और उसके बाद फिर हम आपके पास ले आएंगे.
My name is Azhar Jamil and I'm an old political worker associated with Mehraj Mohammad Khan, so I am a left-wing person. And the issue, what we have heard from the distinguished speakers has highlighted, इस बात को वाज़ह किया है कि इंतशार कितना है हमारी सोच में तालीम के मामले में. लेकिन मसाइल इतने गंभीर नहीं हैं. एक वाज़े तौर पे एक नियत होनी चाहिए कि हम एक मुल्क और कौम, पाकिस्तान एक कसीरुल कौमी मुल्क है, यहाँ हम अक़साम की कौमें और बहुत सारी ज़ुबानें हैं और हर कौम की ज़ुबान को बचाना चाहिए, उसे फ़रोग़ देना चाहिए. जहाँ तक सिंपल सोल्यूशन देना है क्योंकि ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं है, तो मादरी ज़ुबान में बच्चे की इब्तिदाई तालीम होनी चाहिए. फिर जहाँ तक हो सके हम अपनी सिंधी और पश्तो और बलोच और पंजाबी और उर्दू में हम बाकी तालीम करें. मैंने बहुत मुख्तसर सा, क्योंकि इतना अहम मामला है, मैं 2 मिनट में ही ख़त्म करना चाह रहा हूँ जिस पे इतना
अगर सवाल अगर हो तो
नहीं, मैं ये कह रहा हूँ सवाल आएगा इसके साथ साथ. आपकी अंग्रेजी को आप सेकेंडरी लैंग्वेज रख सकते हैं, नॉट एज मीडियम ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन. यानी अगर मकावले चले गए हैं, मकावले की औलादें इक़्तिदार में हैं और अभी तक वही, और हम आज़ाद हो नहीं सकते मिन हैसुल कौम अगर कम अज़ कम हम अपनी कौमी ज़ुबानों में तालीम हासिल ना करें.
शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. अब आगे एंड देन एट द बैक.
हेलो, Honorable Barbara, I want to suggest one thing for you. Being alien to our culture and our systems, you, your countries, your donor agencies draining billions of rupees for few people, and it is not going for the whole Pakistan. Number one. Number two, when English people came here, Britishers, Sir Bartle Frere in 1852 made a letter for all the people serving in Sindh province that in 6 months be well versed with Sindhi language, otherwise come back. So all the people who are working with you, working around you, working for you, working in Sindh, they must be well versed the local languages. Now it is finished. She is our mentor and telling all about mother tongues, our Honorable Zubeda. और जो फैसल साहब ने कहा, लेकिन मैं एक बात बताना चाहता हूँ. In the name of national language, नेशनल गोल और कौमी मफाद आमा के नाम पे वी लास्ट बंगाली पीपल व्हेन कायदे आज़म इन February 2nd 1948 declared Urdu as a national language. So don't misuse the word national goals, don't use these mafade ama, and when UNICEF, UNESCO, United Nations they are saying that it is proven mother tongue should be the medium of the instruction and education for first 12 years. So we should all go for that. And in our constitution, in Justice Jawad Commission, it is said that provinces should go for that. And in Sindh province, 91% is being Sindhi. So we and you and all of us must go for 91% for Sindhi.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Teacher, there's a, no, can I have a lady please?
Madam, thoda
Right to the back.
jawab dein.
Ji?
Halka sa
Yes,
one
and
line.
can I, just before you ask this question, I think there
Ji.
was a very quick response.
Ji, just- just
one
a-
minute,
just-
Faisal,
ji, ji.
Faisal, can Barbara respond on the issue of Sindhi people being hired in the project
Ma'am, may I
in
comment?
Sindh? And then yourself. Barbara, would you like to just respond quickly?
Yes.
Who are the people hired in your program in
Yes.
Sindh?
Yeah, well, there
Are
were
they
two
from Sindh?
questions. So the first question was about about the population that we're serving at the present time. So every project starts out as an experiment. We're entering our third year now. In the next year, we will be rolling out, and we hope that we will be going Sindhi-wide. We very hope that will happen, and that's why we're here. So that this project isn't, it's being funded by USAID, but it's a project for Sindh. And we are here to work with the districts and with TTIs, with schools and with teachers. So there, we will be rolling out very soon, and we hope, inshallah, we will have 100% in Sindh. That's my first comment.
Thank you.
The second comment is about Sindhi language being a requirement for those people who work for the project here. Because we are developing in Sindhi language, it is an asset. It's an asset for those working in the project to speak Sindhi language. I don't think that every single person that that's their focus mother tongue language. For some, it might be their second or third language. But that is something that we would like to have if it's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Faisal, can you hold on? I have one last question for that young girl, otherwise we are really at the end of the time and the next people are already coming in.
Hi, I'll just keep my questions short. I think one thing that I've understood from the discussion was the fact that learning in your vernacular tongue or your mother tongue is most effective, right? So while we can all agree to this, I was a little confused about how in Pakistan or in the sort of rich linguistic diverse landscape that we're living in, how can we sort of decide vernacular tongues or mother tongues for people? Do we make geographical boundaries? Because I don't think that's going to work for us. Or again, how do we address this question in cosmopolitan cities, right? And even in families, for instance, where the father speaks one tongue and the mother speaks another, how do we define the mother tongue for the child? So that's...
Very important question. Can I have Zubaida just have like a one-liner on that? This big question asked, and Faisal, and then we end.
How to decide?
How to decide this whole issue of vernacular.
Actually, this is the question which has to be addressed, and in fact, the report which was published by the British Council, the second one in 2011, and they spoke about more research and more advocacy, because you will have to decide which areas. Obviously, you can't let every child, I would say every group have its own language, but there'll be broad grouping. Like if you take the example of Sindh, we do have Urdu and Sindhi, and I think
Pashto.
if it were to work properly, I mean, we are not implementing things properly, and that is like in the interior of Sindh, where Sindhi is spoken more. So all the schools, at least the government schools, are Sindhi medium, and in Karachi, where there's more of Urdu, so they are Urdu medium, and in fact there's some Pashto medium also in Baldia and all, where there's a big Pashtun population. So, and then of course at some stage the languages have to, I wouldn't say merge, but you have to learn the other languages. So I think it's not so difficult. We would need some research, but first we want to have a will. That is the most important thing. And
sadly, our time is up. I really recommend Zubaida's book. It is absolutely path-breaking, worth a read. These are not easy questions, and I think people should demand a language commission here and solve this issue proactively and progressively. There are solutions, but there has to be investment in
Ma'am, can you make a
education.
comment? Just brief comment. You know, on something that you've just said, I may sound like a Punjabi, but I actually hail from Sufi Fakir from Umarkot and married to a girl from Tando Alayar. I totally disagree. I don't have to take votes from you. पूरा बच्चा सिंध का, मटियारी का, हाला का, टंडो मोहम्मद खान का, टंडो जाम का, उमरकोट का और पूरे इंटीरियर सिंध का, ये सारे बच्चे English medium of instruction, they want to reach out to the world, they want employability, they want access. I worked with 250 government schools in Ghotki, वहाँ पे हर टीचर अंग्रेजी सीखना चाहता था. आपका political issue है, आपका सियासी issue है, आप लोग सीखना नहीं चाहते,
I think
transform
that
होना
is
नहीं
another
चाहते.
issue.
I will say it, you need to learn English.
I think, may I just request everyone? Sultan Zubaida had the last word. Can you just hold on? We'll be booted out of here.
Thank you so
Zubaida,
much.
last
But
word.
Faisal,
one
आप
minute.
सही कह रहे हैं. लेकिन I think this is basically a class issue, and we should understand that Pakistan is a society which is torn by classes. And when the upper class is going after English, you can't blame these children who don't even understand
1
all the
hour to this
implications.
session
कि हम भी
is
अंग्रेजी पढ़ेंगे.
Not enough. But I want you all to give a big round of applause to our panelists, and the conversations will go on. Thank you.
Bella, you were